purpose of our meeting today is our public hearing for our budget. So what I'm going to do at this point is, turn our meeting over to our finance officer, Mary Gilroy, to go over our budget.
Ready to roll. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. As the presenter, I have a favor to ask of you. If you're gonna whisper while I'm doing this, be very, very quiet, because it's very, very distracting, okay? And I'm not trying to be harsh, but it's very distracting. When we get done and we go into public comment, I just wanna tell you, if you ask questions that I can't answer, I'm gonna tell you that. I'll take the question, figure out what the answer is, and get back to you, but I won't do a lot of numbers on the fly tonight, okay? Because that's where you do a lot of mistakes. So anyway, this is the FY 25-26 budget message for Foxfire Village, North Carolina. It is prepared for the Village Council and presented for consideration today, June 17th, 2025. We'll walk through every item on the budget amendment, or on the budget ordinance rather, and then I'm going to flesh out some detail for you. This budget has been prepared in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 159 and is in compliance with the North Carolina Local Government Fiscal Control Act. It's presented for the council's consideration. The FY 25-26 budget being presented is balanced. For both the village general fund and water fund, the projected expenses are equal to the projected revenues. And the question everyone wants to know, yes, the village property tax rate will remain unchanged at 29 cents per $100 of value for this fiscal year. We'll continue to use First Bank and the North Carolina Capital Management Trust for our banking needs. The deposit accounts there are maintained for both the general fund and the water fund. We have contracted to do our annual audit with Anderson, Smith, and White out of Rockingham. They have done our audit for several years. Your village continues to operate debt-free. That's a big one for me. And I remain as the designated finance officer and budget officer for FY 25-26. Before I get into the numbers, let me say something. To me, and I think the council would agree, when we talk about the budget, it represents our stewardship of your tax dollars. And that's a big deal. We don't take that responsibility lightly. To steward something means to manage it rightly and to watch out for it. And as we go through the budget tonight, I hope that you'll see that that is exactly what we have tried to do. Okay? So let's go to expenditures first. And if you look at the budget ordinance, you can see you've got general government and it lists administration. It has public safety, listing police, fire protection. It has transportation with streets and roads. Recreation is Village Green Park and the pool. And other is contingency and reserves. And I'm going to pop a slide up there for you. Hold on. I think I got it. Okay. So if you look at the general fund expenses, I did this so you could see the percentage that we spend. Now, which glasses are going to work? Not those. Okay, so for admin, we're spending 17.8% of the budget. Police is 23.6%. The West End Fire Department is estimated at 14.4%. Streets and roads is 17%. And yes, I realize there's an S missing on street. Because when I made the slide, I touched a button. I don't know what I did, and everything went vertical. And I really liked it, but I couldn't make any corrections. So I am aware that there is an S missing. On the Village Green Park, we're going to spend 3.1%. The pool gets, does that say 3.8?
It does,
3.8,
yes.
okay, good. Contingency is going to come in at 4.5%, and reserve funds will come in at 15.8%. So, if you look at those accounts by number, you can see that under expenditures, we're going to spend $350,730. On police, we'll spend $463,270. The fire department at $282,300. Streets and roads at $335,050. Village Green Park at $60,550. The pool at $74,280. We'll have contingency funds set aside of $87,820, and we'll have reserves of $310,000. Now, having said that, let me, whoops, back out of there. Let me just walk through a couple things. In the administrative department, there's a slight increase in expenses from FY 24-25 of $18,267. That is primarily due to salary and benefit increases, which I'm going to talk about separately at the end very quickly. And we've set aside $10,000 for a village accessory building. In police and fire, the police department has increased expenses of just, over $91,000. Again, primarily to salary and benefit increases and a new police vehicle. New police vehicles are pricey. This one is what, Don, 55,000, okay? And then our bookkeeper, Shannon, dug in and went through accounts and assigned some expenses to the police department that were being paid out of admin. It's a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there. We separated all the Gmail accounts, so every department gets their own charge for Gmail and stuff like that. As it says, we reserved $60,000 for a new vehicle purchase. And then the West End Fire Department contract for 25-26 is in negotiation. In addition to the cost for the fire contract, we will pay our percentage of a federally mandated radio upgrade, which is estimated at $32,000. It's one where the Fed said you have to do it and then didn't provide any money. Okay, on streets and roads, we're doing 2 paving projects this year. Foxfire Boulevard at $100,000, and what I call the Foxfire Boulevard Condo Road. Does that road have a name? It doesn't.
Probably, it doesn't have a name, but I would say it's like an extension.
Yeah, I would call it the extension.
Okay, well, I put condo road because
It's-
I knew it was very descriptive. At $102,000, the extension road, if you've walked over there, is in pretty bad shape. And it's not just a case of laying down paving, it has to be milled. Akin to taking your house down to the studs when you're doing something, we're basically taking the road down to the studs, okay, to get that fixed. And then, the addition of the extension road paving accounts for the increase in the streets and roads budget for 25-26. 25-26 funding is reduced for the park by an estimated $50,000. Let's pray it holds. The pool has a significant reduction in FY 25-26 funding due to the pool repairs that were funded in 24-25. Okay? And then if we go into reserve and contingencies, we'll put $25,000 into capital reserves. We'll put $60,000 into police reserve for another police vehicle. We'll put $150,000 into the street reserve. We'll put $25,000 into a public safety reserve. The public safety reserve is a new account, and our thinking was this. When the West End Fire Department has a capital purchase, we're responsible for a percentage, and so we thought instead of us giving them the money and they could earn interest on it, we could keep the money, we could earn interest on it, and we could also plan for expenses. The example would be this: they have a some kind of fire truck, I think, right? Fire truck?
Fire engine.
What is it? Engine, okay, 26, 27.
About 800,000.
They're on the budget for 550.
Engine.
Yeah, I don't know if it's for new engine. But anyway, that new engine will last about 20 years, so we take our percentage of that cost, divide it by 20, and that's the amount of money we start to put away. Okay, we'll also use that public safety reserve for things that the police department needs that need to be reserved outside of for a vehicle, okay? The employee compensation reserve, we funded at $50,000, and then in contingency, we'll have $87,820, bringing the total expenditures for the budget to $1,964,000. And if we move into revenues, okay, for revenue, you can see the percentages there. Our ad valorem taxes, property, motor vehicle, and sales tax accounts for just over 73% of our income. Our unrestricted funds, like utility franchise, video programming, telecom, and beer and wine, gives us just over 4%. Restricted funds, like PAL bill and building permits, accounts for about 3%. Sales and service, which is the park and pool fees, it's really not 0.5%, but I couldn't get it to come on the chart if I didn't give it a little something, so it's very, very small. And then in miscellaneous, we have the Moore County ABC, we have interest on our investments, and we have transfer from capital reserves. So if we go through that, you can see we expect $890,000 of property tax. Motor vehicle tax is estimated at $87,100. Sales tax at $465,000, giving us a total for those three accounts of $1,442,100. In unrestricted governmental funds, in other words, governmental funds that we can use however we want, okay? We have telecom, sales tax at $1,500, utility franchise tax at $60,000, video programming tax at $20,000, beer and wine at $5,000, for a total of $86,500. Restricted intergovernmental funds are things where we get money and we're told how to use it. We don't get a choice. So Powell bill money, we've estimated at $50,000. Lisa has estimated building permits at $8,000 for a total of $58,000. And then pool and park fees, we estimated $5,000 for pool fees, $300 for the park, which gives us a total of $5,300. And then miscellaneous, the Moore County ABC, $100. So weird. Interest on investments, we're estimating at $110,000. Transfer from capital reserves at $262,000 for a total of $372,100 and a matching total revenue of $1,964,000. Now let me just back off of that for a second. Okay, so when we look at real property and motor vehicle tax, the property valuation this year was, and we get this number from the county, is $343,300,000. This is an increase over FY 24-25 and generates an additional $36,686 of projected revenue. Pardon? $38,686. Okay. Based on past experience, and the county does this, we always assume a budget collection rate of 98%. Revenue generated by real property and motor vehicle tax is estimated to be just over $977,000, or 50% of our general fund revenue. It's a big chunk. When we talk about local option sales tax, remember this year that there was a pretty big uptick in sales tax because of the US Open. All right, the county had conservatively estimated that they would take in another 10%. When we looked at sales tax revenue for 24-25, we're very conservative. It now represents 24% of our budget, and we brought it in at $465,000. There is an enormous amount of uncertainty, and consumer spending is one of the most fickle pots on the planet. So we adjusted down by $35,000. I mean, if we get more than that, hallelujah, I mean, it's good, it's just extra income. But the one thing we did not want to do was put ourselves in a position of shortage, okay? And then if you look at the unrestricted intergovernmental funds, telecom, again, is still estimated at $1,500. The utility franchise, we increased to $60,000 for FY 25-26, and that was based on looking at previous year's numbers. Those funds are weather sensitive, and the utility franchise, if I understand it correctly, is kind of like a rebate that the utility company pays to the county based on aggregate gross revenue, and then it is distributed by population. That's how we get it. And then video programming revenue, we left unchanged at $20,000, and North Carolina taxes downloads of ebooks, music, and streaming services. These probably used to tax Redbox too, but I can't find one of those. Seriously, it's like they just vanished. Okay, restricted intergovernmental funds. We left our Powell bill funds unchanged at $50,000 from 24-25. The Powell bill funds pay out at the end of September and the end of December, and they're based on the mileage of village-maintained roads and population. We'll know at the end of September, because I think it comes in 2 equal payments if we underestimated, and it's possible that we did. This year we got closer to 60,000. So again, if we underestimated, great, that's just extra revenue, but we won't risk any kind of a shortage. And then building permits are down from last year and based on 8,000 because people aren't building as much and we don't have as many lots left. Miscellaneous revenue and investment earnings. We estimate our interest on investments at $110,000 for FY 25-26, subject to interest rates. The current rate that we receive through the North Carolina Capital Management Trust is hovering right about 4.1%. If you follow the Fed very much, there are lots of predictions that they'll cut it once before the end of the year, they'll cut it twice before the end of the year. The pool that I saw from our guy at the trust showed that it was possible we would be at 3.5% by the end of the year. And whatever it is, it's still better than not making anything. One other thing I'll say, on the investment earnings is that when we have a lot of money in our checking account, for example, the summer we don't have so much, but once people start paying property taxes again in September, October, November, and December, we take in a lot of money. And we don't really need to use it all at one time, so we'll be sweeping some of that, even if it's only for 3 or 4 months, from the checking account to the capital trust so it can earn some interest. Is it gonna be a lot? No, but I'll take an extra 5 or 10 grand, that's not a problem. And then the last thing there, the transfer from the capital reserve of $262,000 is for the village accessory building, the 2 streets, and the police car. All right, and I think that's gonna wrap up the general fund. Moving on to water. Moving on to water. Okay, let's run through the expenditures first. No, this next one. Okay. In the water fund for 25-26 expenses, meters in the water tower accounts for 9.5%. Well maintenance, infrastructure, and repair comes in at 14%. New well construction at 38%. Professional services at 10%. Operational and administrative expenses at 5.5%, and salary and benefits at 23%. If we walk down the budget ordinance, under water distribution and maintenance, we have meters estimated at 25,000. The water tower at 27.8 thousand. Let me pop the slide here. 27.8 thousand. We have well maintenance, infrastructure and repair at 79,500. The new well construction capital project at 140,000. New well construction at 85,000. Professional services expense at 57,300, totaling $414,600. In addition to that, we have additional expenses, operational expenses of 34,200, administrative expense of 17,700, salary and benefits of 135,150, bringing the total expenses in the water fund to $601,650. And let me just run a couple of things for you there. Okay, new well construction accounts for over 1/3 of FY 25-26 expenses.
Good.
It's not something we can really get around. I mean, since I moved here in 2011, our population has doubled. And it is critical to us that in order to maintain our water system, that we continue to have new wells. We also have chosen to continue to give a higher priority to well maintenance and repair than previous years. And that's not a knock on any previous council, but you have to understand that growth causes pressure on things. So, you know, the water system's used a lot more, the pipes are used a lot more, the pumps are used a lot more. And so Warren, our water guy, and Jesse, our water technician, whoa, what the heck happened here? Wait a minute, operator error. Oh heck. Excuse me, don't save. Hang on one second, just knock myself out. Okay, I apologize for that. Also realize that when we talk about salaries up there and it says $135,150, 50% of the administrative assistant salary and 30% of the bookkeeper's salary are assigned to the water fund because they handle water billing. Okay, so the water technician is not making $135,000. Trust me. The professional services expense that we have listed up there is to potentially do a complete evaluation on the village water system. We would bring in an outside consultant for that project, and we have asked the Central Pines Regional Council to help us identify people that might be qualified to do that. And then we did increase water rates in January of 2025, but it doesn't really appear sufficient to offset all of our 25-26 fund expenses, and we'll come back to that. All right, so if I move us on to water fund revenue, go. All right. The way we have it on the budget ordinance is we have charge for services, water billings estimated at $351,000, tap-on fees $20,000, interest on investments, 23,000, for a total, charge for services of $394,000. Non-operating revenues, transfer from the capital project fund, $139,869. This is the balance that is left in the capital project fund that we opened at the beginning of this fiscal year to cover for the new well construction. And then it says transfer from infrastructure here, that will be changed in council discussion to fund balance appropriation of $67,781, giving non-operating revenues of $207,650, or total water revenues of $600,650, so that revenue and expenses are equal. Let's just hit a couple things there. Okay, under water fund revenues are decreased in 25-26 primarily due. Yeah. Oh, my dogs are up there. Oops. Oops, oops, oops,
Not
oops.
that we're not dog lovers.
Hold on it. Oh, that's not good. Lisa, what did I do?
Is that
Something time out.
Sure.
You did have the right slide up when you were speaking.
I did.
Did you hit your PowerPoint icon for that?
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. There we go. I make my husband do this stuff at home. What can I say? Okay, wait a minute. Expenses, is that where I'm supposed to be? Revenues, we're around reps,
There you
reps,
go.
there we go.
Right there.
Okay. All right, so fund revenues decreased in 25-26, fewer tap-on fees. One of the things we did this year in 24 and 25 was we overestimated the tap-on fees. And that's just fact, and so we just, hopefully we underestimated a little bit for 25-26. Current water billings and tap-on fees comprise 62% of water fund revenues. But based on this budget, it would appear that our current water rates are not sufficient. Because when you have to do a fund balance appropriation into an enterprise fund, which the water fund is, that position is not sustainable. What it's saying is that you have more expenses in your water fund than you do revenue, and so we're basically pulling money out of the water fund savings account to make the budget work. Nothing to freak out about, you just need to know that. And that concludes my portion of the presentation. So I would say that I respectfully submit the budget to the council. The end.
All right, well, at this point, I believe, Lisa, I believe we need a motion to open the public hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None being, I just wanted to let the record show that, Councilman Warren Morgan is absent from the meeting and all other council members are present. So, now that the public, hearing is open, I invite anyone in the audience to make any comments, questions regarding the budget. Please approach the podium.
Sorry, it's always me. The question that I have is, I'm looking at the amount that we are continuing to put in reserves. And I'd like to know how much we currently have in the reserve accounts.
I'll get
And
that for you.
Can we hold on one second? I just wanted to let the record show that it's Leslie Frusco that is
sorry,
speaking.
sorry.
And it's Quail, Court,
No, it's Hillside.
Hillside.
Sorry. What the capital reserves currently are, and because we continue to add to them, what is the goal of council? You know, where do we get to where we say, okay, we're in a good position because the village revenues are handling most of, you know, the ongoing expenses, particularly in the general fund.
Okay, I didn't bring the current reserve amounts with me, and I'll be happy to get those for you.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Then, just a minor on the second question is, why the projected decrease in Powell bill funds since our population's not decreasing and our street mileage isn't decreasing, and yet in the current year, we took in $65,000. Are you expecting that the state legislature is making noises about?
They're always making noises.
Well, I know they're always making noises, but I mean, is there anything specific that's out there that says that they're looking at doing away with Powell bill or reducing the allocation?
I don't know.
I can answer that I have seen.
Yeah, because we started at 60 and came down.
I have seen rumblings that they want to, for certain size municipalities, they want to stop Powell bill, and that they wanted to reduce, I believe, funding for Powell bill for other communities, but they're being very non-specific about what they want to do. So there are rumblings, and I don't know.
Yeah,
really.
as you say, there have been rumblings for 15 years.
Right,
about
I think it's just an
Powell.
item that we don't want to overestimate, and so.
Okay. So what are the plans? I mean, we have a reserve fund in the water fund, so you're having to pull something out of it. But we also have some significant repair things that you built into the budget.
Yep.
So what are you anticipating, and what is the discussion with regards to raising of water rates? Because in your comment, you say the current are not sustainable, and yet we just raised water rates in 2025. Now, you haven't really received the fruition of that increase, because obviously in other words, it didn't reflect in the current year's actual numbers, because you don't start to see the increase per se, because everybody's only using minimum, or most people are only using minimum until you get to the irrigation time. And then you see, so I recognize the fact that, you haven't really seen the full impact yet of what those water rate increases are gonna be, because probably a lot of residents have only seen a small increase. They've only seen the increase from 22 to 25 in that on a monthly basis. Whereas you're gonna see the impact of that increase more so come now, May, June, July, August, September into October, those 6 months when it gets dry and it gets hot and people are using water more. So,
Okay, so let me answer your question. We'll have some discussion after the public comment period is closed about the water fund, but we need to be able to sustain that water fund. And we're down 67,000 here, and there are some additional expenses that have come in which are gonna raise that. So there is no way that we can run the water fund constantly pulling out of, doing a fund balance appropriation. The other thing is this, I mean, we've doubled our population, so water rates will help, but I'm not sure that they're gonna cover everything. When you take tap-on fees out, that's another, 2 years ago, we were on tap-on fees of like about 70,000. This year, I think we didn't even break 30. So having an additional water rate increase is something I think the council has to talk about. And quite frankly, it was $22 a month when I moved here in 2011, it had been there forever. $2 was not a big deal, and if we need to go up in order to keep that water fund solvent and not get nasty notes from the LGC and the auditor, I think that's something we're gonna need to consider.
okay, that's fair. You don't know off the top of your head, I hate to ask this,
I'll tell you if I don't know, so ask away.
what the water fund, like, we're pulling out of the fund balance for the new fiscal year. We're not depleting it, correct?
No, they hold 667,000 in the North Carolina, in the Capital Trust. They also have a money market at First Bank. And then they have funds in First Bank. But off the top of my head, I don't know what their funds in First Bank are.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all.
That's it?
That's
Yay.
it.
Any other public comments? questions?
Yes.
Please, state your name and address.
Good afternoon, Gerard Frederic at 27 Eagle Drive. A few questions. Trying to understand the professional services that you're estimating for the amount of 57.
For the water fund?
Yeah. for
What would you like to
57.
know?
What is the intention of that?
I hope I covered it. The intention of the professional services is to get an outside consultant to evaluate our water system. Our water system is old. We've gotten some notes from the local government commission, which kind of monitors municipalities, asking about the integrity of the system because of its age. And so we would like to have a consultant come in and really thoroughly go through the water system and give us an evaluation of what it looks like and what it looks like going down the road. Now, we've not identified that person. I won't say that number is a placeholder, but that number certainly could change.
Is it in your consideration to have them assess current need, growth, and capacity?
I would expect a consultant to do all that.
Well, to me, it's one thing to assess the situation, take a snapshot of something, how it's operating today, whether maintenance is on par or substandard. It's another thing to project, look, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years down the road.
Those are things I think that we would discuss with the consultant. You know, when you lay out a consultant contract, you can be very specific about what you ask them to do, and I would expect to see an entire, you guys please chime in, but I would expect to see a very clear, explicit, detailed picture of what we have, what it's capable of, what's gonna need repairs, how growth will impact it, all those kinds of things.
Okay. Running projects, I always like to know what's in scope, what's out of scope. And I believe it's very critical that y'all make it part of the scope to understand what your future, what the future demands are gonna be on the system and where the capacity lies today and what your plans are to increase that capacity. Because from what I'm seeing as a resident, the capacity is under par.
I don't think it's,
Why do we have, you're shaking your head, no, why do we have to have water restrictions stage 1 and we're first week of June?
the whole county's under stage 1.
But just because the whole county doesn't mean we should be. I mean, why aren't we trying to keep up ahead of the growth by increasing the number of wells?
Well, that's what we are doing.
We're doing that.
We're
That
doing
doesn't-
that. We've got
We're
one
doing
new well, we have one new well that's being worked on now. We have another well that we're looking at,
Bringing online.
bringing back online. And then we have a third site that will be testing. That's what the, new well construction is for. So we have a third site that we will be bringing, testing to see if we can bring on board. But that all takes, time for that to happen. You have to go through state approvals and testing, well site, test drilling, test bores. So we're in that process on 3 sites right now. We're in different phases on 3 different sites.
And at different phases, and I understand that, but are you accelerating that pace?
No, you can't accelerate it. You have to go through the state process.
Right.
And you have to have well sites. You can't, I don't know how to, I don't mean to be short with you, but I don't know how you accelerate that process.
It's not like putting a well in your backyard.
Understood. You look at 2 sites, look at doubling the number of sites that you're.
We have looked at
done
all
that.
kinds
You've
of
done that.
sites. That's how we ended up with, that's why we bought the 5 acres. I mean, you can speak to all the sites we looked at where we went dry.
Right.
This has been an ongoing, we didn't just dream this up 6 months or a year ago to start looking for well sites. And Leslie Fresco, who was on the council for about 12 years, can certainly confirm that. We're always looking for well sites.
It's in this area, and you may or may not be aware of this, but in this area, it's pretty common for people to try to put a well in, even if they're
Right.
home, and they can go down 1,000 feet and get nothing. So water is at a premium, and I believe that's what people need to realize, and that's why we and the whole county are on voluntary, be careful of your water usage, because our water in this area and in a lot of North Carolina is a very valuable resource.
Yeah.
And it's not as though we have reservoirs all over the place, that, you know, the county is not structured that way. So, again, it's a valuable resource and we have to be mindful of it. And again, it's voluntary restrictions.
Right now.
Right, right. And again, we have to be mindful that, you know, to conserve water, that's all. It's like conserving energy or conserving anything. It's a valuable resource and we have to treat it that way.
Well, I lived in Pinehurst for 14 years and never had any water restrictions. And since-
Totally different water system, it's totally different.
Right.
Yes, because geographically we've moved 15 miles west. But the management is part of what I'm trying to emphasize on, taking a look and being a little bit more aggressive in whatever the plans are.
Okay,
Next, I'd like to ask about the building permits. How do y'all come up with the building permit fee costs and structure?
Basically, it's the
Yeah.
time and effort, involved, and it's a $400, a building fee is $400 for a house, a building permit. So it's basically the time for us to go through, review the process, review the project,
Review
and,
plans.
review plans, and set, you know, review the process and the plans.
So
And-
there's no, is there, I shouldn't say there isn't, should ask the question, I rephrased the question. Is there any consideration based on the size of the property, the planned size of the landscaping, the number of bathrooms,
no, I
and the
don't,
water?
I don't think you
We
can do
can't-
that.
we
It's a
can't-
flat fee,
We
it's a
can't.
flat fee.
Yeah, ours is a flat fee, there are no, it's just a flat fee, a $400 flat fee for us to review that.
So Mr. Builder can come in, put in a house of whatever at a fixed CapEx of $400, and then now Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner get to foot the bill for whatever it costs to maintain the landscaping, run the water.
It's their property,
Yeah.
they own it.
Thank you. I see you've got pool and park fees at $5,300
Uh-huh.
for this year. And you all just worked on this budget. Do you expect that with the number of days that the pool's gonna be open?
Let me answer that for you. When we started out, we had pool fees estimated at $8,000. The pool is a money pit. It does not generate a lot of revenue, okay? So when we figured it wasn't gonna open right away, I took that number and just decreased it. And then on the park fees, we probably are running a little bit less on park fees. The original estimate was $500. Our requirement for liability insurance has, I think, caused some people to look someplace where they didn't have to do that.
So you did reevaluate and lower that number?
Yeah,
based on-
when we saw that the pool wasn't gonna be able to open on time, mostly because of weather, we backed it off. But let me tell you, the pool revenue, I mean, it just doesn't, I don't know,
I
8,000,
think in 2023, we had
yeah.
$8,000.
Yeah. It is not a revenue generating enterprise.
And I don't think it's anybody's expectation that it would be any kind of a revenue generation. It's a nice to have feature.
It's an amenity, it's a nice to have amenity.
It's a very,
Yeah.
very nice amenity to have. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Can I come back for one more?
Any other comments or questions?
Only if it's easy.
What?
No, we have to take all questions.
We have stipulations.
Yes,
Don't
yes.
ask me to answer all of them.
Repeat questions are allowed.
Has the council, so I'm gonna preface this by saying thank you. Okay, I'm gonna preface this by saying thank you for all the volunteer hours that all of you put in for this. Are we perfect? We are not perfect. Is any village like Pinehurst perfect? No, they're not perfect, okay? Nothing is perfect. And I wanna thank you for all the time that you guys all put in to making this, because it's all volunteer time. And trust me, these meetings that you see, these meetings mean nothing. They're a drop in the bucket when it comes to the work that has to be done behind the scenes to keep it going. So that brings me to my questions. But do understand, it is highly appreciated, and I truly know how much time and effort you put in. Has council started to consider when the time is for a village manager? Because as this village continues to grow exponentially, you know, and yes, we're gonna come to a finite point but you see the building that's going on out there, and lots that I never thought anybody would ever try and build on, they're building on them. So, you know, every lot out there is a potential buildable site. So it's not really a question that I want an answer to, but I'd like to know that this council, because I know when I was on council for all those years, it was really determined that we weren't big enough. But now that we've basically like doubled in size in the last 12 years or so, you know, when is the time to start looking at that?
Can I answer that for you?
Yeah.
You need to look at the land use plan, because the land use plan pretty much says we're gonna tap out at about 2,500 people, okay? And I can't put my finger on where I saw this, but a couple years ago, I did some research on North Carolina municipalities. And those that operate at 2,500 people or less do not have a village manager.
Right.
And I'm not saying that it wouldn't be something that, you know, as a council we consider, but we're not gonna be some metropolis.
No.
We're never gonna be a metropolis.
No, and if we tag out at 2,500
But you're gonna run out
people-
of resources of qualified people who are
Well-
willing to put in the time and effort.
We
that
still
it
need a
takes.
council, that's the
Yeah.
thing, it
Right.
doesn't, village manager does not negate or delete your council.
No, but if you look at,
And the council still, the manager works at the pleasure of the council, as I'm
that's,
aware.
that's true, however,
So-
you know, if you take a look at and really analyze like, look at Pinehurst, and I know it's big, and I know it's everything else, but the village staff, of which we have a very tiny village staff, the village staff does 90% of the work. And they have all the background work, and then it's presented to council. And council then discusses it, but they've got all these recommendations on that. And we're in a position right now, you guys are in a position where all of the work to get to a point A, whether it's the budget, or whether it's a resolution, or whether it's anything else, all of that has to be done by one or all of you. So there is, you know, a lot of work that the council, time that the council would still need to be putting in. But there's also a lot of the constant background work of getting you to the point where you can have, that you guys are all doing, to get to the point where you can have a discussion on.
Well, I
So
guess
that's,
I don't think that has anything to do with the budget tonight, though.
No.
well,
I'm not trying to be unkind, but I mean, that's a deep subject.
I realize it's a deep subject, but it goes with money too, because it costs money to help. So, that's all.
I wanna come back to Gerard's comment about Pinehurst for just a second and their water. If you look it up I just looked it up online. Pinehurst primarily gets its water from groundwater sources, specifically 17 wells. Moore County Public Utilities manages the water and sewer service for Pinehurst and other areas, purchasing bulk water from various sources to supplement their own well production. These supplemental sources include Harnett County Regional Water and Southern Pines Utilities. It's critical you understand that. We don't have access to other supplies besides our own, and that probably is why you didn't see water restrictions in Pinehurst. At some point, I guess county water is gonna come down Hoffman, I mean, I don't know, but we don't
We
rely
shouldn't pay for it,
on,
though.
on any other outside sources besides ourselves. And when you were talking, I was thinking that Pinehurst was supplemented through the county, and that's exactly the case. So it's a totally different water system. You can't even begin to compare the access to water that Pinehurst has to the access that we have in Foxfire.
Yeah, and I wanna make a point. We were just up by Lake Superior. Everybody know where that is? Up by Canada, Michigan,
No idea.
Minnesota. It's a big lake.
Never heard of it.
And in the hotel, which is right on Lake Superior, it has a sign in the bathroom, please be conservative with our water. And they're on a huge lake that spans Canada and the United States. People are asking everybody to conserve water. It's just that simple. And I don't know how many states in the South that don't ask their residents to conserve water. It's just a fact of life now, unfortunately.
Any other comments and questions?
Colleen Schneider, 2 Sunset Lane. Just piggyback on Leslie for a second, I do think that that would be a future discussion. I know it's come up once before with the manager. Especially with the turnover, and now you're starting, the learning curve's gonna start all over again. I just have a question about this accessory building. I don't recall what that is.
Well, we haven't, it
We've
was,
Well, it's a plan.
right.
Yeah.
Right. It was basically a storage building that we are looking to put somewhere on the property so that we can store a lot of things that get stored in the building or outside of buildings that really should be inside of buildings. There's police equipment, there's not blockades, but barriers, there's tables that are extra tables,
Chairs that are hanging around.
there's just a lot of things that, we used to use some office space for storage, but now we have employees working in there, so, there's also a lot of, items associated with the water department that are in offices that need to be in other locations.
Okay,
So-
my brain went to getting the cars, the impounded cars.
Oh,
in
no,
it.
no,
And I thought,
no.
are we building something for that? Okay.
No, and there was discussion about the
Yeah.
impound and all of that, and moving the yard waste, and that's not happening. This is just a storage building, it's a, prefab storage building, for, additional equipment that is being stored in inefficient
Wherever.
places,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
My husband wanted to know if it's gonna be a she shed.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Had some good questions, so thank you for those. None being? Okay. I guess I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion. Go ahead.
Make a motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Public hearing is closed at 6:48.